So yesterday we were talking about Arrow Impossibility Theorem, right? And we have defined few properties of the social decision mechanism, which were unrestricted domain, social preferences should be complete and transitive, and the Pareto principle, right? So today we're going to take the discussion further, and we're going to talk about the two other properties, the two other remaining properties, and we'll see that what do you mean by this impossibility in this Arrow's theorem, right? Social welfare function should satisfy independence of irrelevant alternatives. I've given you some idea yesterday as well of this. Independence of irrelevant alternatives. So what is this saying? So if you're going to figure out that how society is thinking between X to Y, right? Then we should only focus on X2, right? We should not be worried about that how society is thinking about Z. Are you getting what I'm trying to tell you? So if we are trying to figure out how society is weighing the two options X to Y, then what society thinks about Z, it should not matter. That is an irrelevant alternative, right? So please write. If we are trying to figure out whether society prefers X to Y, right? Then what society thinks about Z, it should not matter. Huh? What society thinks about Z should not matter. And this is ruling out, this rules out a rule like board account. You did this yesterday, na? Huh? This one. You've talked about board account, and we said, right? We said this that um, the socially chosen outcome, it should not change. It should not change when the unchosen options are eliminated, right? So this is what independence of irrelevant alternatives is. So in this particular example which we gave yesterday, earlier when C and D were present, B was chosen, right? Now when C and D were eliminated, A is chosen. So this is not independence of irrelevant alternatives, right? This is not independent of irrelevant alternatives. So let me also tell you one more thing. I'll give you one more example. Suppose there are three political parties. A, B, and C, right? And party C does not field its candidate in one constituency. It doesn't, right? So it is not fielding its candidate in one of the constituencies. So what happens? that in that particular constituency will the other option is still ruling, that party A is better than B is better than C, right? So this is there, because this we have assumed that since A is at the center and B is the next opposition party, so A is better than B. Just a very naive way of thinking, but let's say like this. And party C has not fielded its candidate there. So what will happen? Will the entire vote will go to A? Not necessary, right? Will the entire vote go to A? Because we have assumed that A is better than B. So the rational preference would say this, but no, I mean, entire vote of C can actually go to B as well. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So it's not necessary that the entire vote will go to A. Just because A is better than B, we've assumed like this. It can very well go to C as well. B as well. So this is the condition of the independence of irrelevant alternatives. So just because you have, I mean, C was very well not winning the election because it is not fielded its candidate, but still it has changed the order, right? So of the winning. So please write this. Will all votes go to A, right? If rational preference is held. If rational preference is held. It is very well possible that all votes of C. So when I say all votes, I mean votes of C go to A. All votes of C go to B, right? All votes of C go to B. This is the condition. This is the condition of irrelevant alternatives, right? Right. So, I mean, they've just completely skewed the results. They've skewed the results completely. So A is better than B is better than C. So A should be better than C. That was there if the rational preference is held. But people who were liking C instead of voting for A, they have voted for B. And B comes out as the winner, right? So, but when C steps out, B becomes the winner. This happens. I mean, in our country, this happens. In the multi-party system, it happens always, right? There's a condition of irrelevant alternative. So when C steps out, when C steps out, B could emerge as a winner. B could emerge as the winner, right? So, I mean, if you just want to summarize all this, your independent order, and you can also write about the rank order voting, which we did yesterday, right? This is, you can talk about border count, then this rank order voting as well. So introducing the new alternative, social ranking has changed. So we have done this yesterday also. So in your answer, maybe you can write this as well. So if we want to just summarize all this, so basically what is this trying to state is that the election results should not change if the losing candidate is left out, right? So when you have A, B, C, D, and C and D have not won, so between A and B, again, if the new election is going to be held, A is chosen. That's an idea, right? So this is what the independence of irrelevant alternative is telling you? It states that election results should not change if a losing candidate is left out, right? So to check whether this independence of irrelevant alternatives is violated or not, so what you should see is that you first of all find out the old election results. So between A, B, C, D, A has won, right? So B, C, D have not won. Fair enough. Now you leave out, let's say, two losing candidates, C and D, and you again do the new election between A and B, keeping all the individual preferences same. Then again, A should win. Then again, A should win. So if the winner of the new election is different from the old and original election, it means that independence of irrelevant alternative is violated, right? So please write this to check whether is violated. We must remove a losing candidate we must remove a losing candidate keeping the voters' preferences same. Keeping the voters' preferences same, right? And then we find the winner of the new election. And then we find the winner of the new election. And if the winner of the new election is different from the winner of the old and the original election, it means that IIA is violated, right? If the winner of the new election is different than the old election, right? Old and original election, then IIA is violated, right? And then there is another desirable property, which is non-dictatorship. Non-dictatorship. is another property, non-dictatorship. So a social welfare function is the dictatorship if the social preference is just going to reflect the preferences of just one individual, right? Of just one individual, regardless of even the entire society apart from him, right? So a social welfare function is a dictatorship if the social preference just reflects one guy's preferences, one individual's preference. When you're writing just one individual's preference, this is a dictatorship. So supposedly, if somebody is a dictator and he prefers X to Y and the entire society prefers Y to X, but still X to Y would be there, right? So if there is some individual K, right, such that regardless of anyone else's preferences, X is strictly preferred to Y if and only if X is strictly preferred to Y by this individual case. So this is the societal preferences. And this is the preference of the kth individual. Now, because kth individual is strictly preferring X to Y, then society also prefer X to Y. It doesn't have any say in that, right? So what does the theorem says? The theorem says this: any social welfare function that satisfies transitivity, unanimity, that is your Pareto principle, and independence of irrelevant alternatives is a dictatorship. Is a dictatorship. So what it is trying to say that you can have basically four choices. So you have four choices, beta. You can violate transitivity. So in your social welfare function, you may violate transitivity. Something like majority voting, right? Something like majority voting. Or you can violate unanimity. Right? Something like fixed rules. Social preferences are fixed regardless of individual preferences. I've given an example earlier. So some nonsensical rules, like fixed rules, right? Or you can violate independence of irrelevant alternatives. Like, for example, like something like border, border count, rank order voting. You did this yesterday. Or you can have dictatorship. Or you can have dictatorship. So basically, this is the idea. So either you violate transitivity, and all of the three could be there, maybe. So, but something you will have to violate. So if you want that your social welfare function should satisfy transitivity, unanimity, and independence of irrelevant alternatives, the kind of social welfare function which that thing is going to generate is a dictatorship, right? Is a dictatorship. So, and while proving what is it that you will be assuming is that there is a social welfare function which is satisfying transitivity, unanimity, and independence of irrelevant alternatives. And then you show that this means that there must be some voter whose preferences are always going to match the social preference, and that voter is a dictator, right? So we're not getting into the proof per se. It's not required. Maybe in your advanced undergraduate class, or most probably in your master's class, you'll be doing. So it's a lengthy proof, a quite involved one. But you should understand what's an idea. You should understand what's an idea behind this. So Varian also says one thing. It says this, that this is a very surprising result. He says this, that these are very plausible features of any social mechanism. You need to have transitive preferences. You should have unanimous rule should be there, independence of irrelevant alternatives, but they're inconsistent with democracy. They're completely inconsistent with democracy, right? So there is no perfect way to make a social decision. There's no perfect way to make a social decision. There is no perfect way to aggregate preferences. That's an idea. It's a beautiful line which he has written. So please write this, what he writes. It shows that it shows that there is it shows that these very plausible features these very plausible features of social decision mechanism, right, are inconsistent with democracy. Are inconsistent with democracy. It's a beautiful line which he has written. He said this, there is no perfect way to make a social decision. There is no perfect way of aggregating the preferences, right? So there is no perfect way to make social decision. There is no perfect way of aggregating the individual preferences to form one social preference. To form one social preference, right? So, and if we want to have a way to aggregate individual preferences to form the social preferences, we will have to give up one of the social decision mechanism, either of them, right? We will have to give up this. So, and this is what is described in the Arrow Impossibility Theorem. It's a beautiful result, right? It's a beautiful result. So this is what I wanted to do in this class, beta. Thank you, beta.